Hey everyone, Dana here. Hi, how are you? Americans don't really care about how you're doing when they ask that, do they? Well, no, but there's more to it than that. I get a lot of questions about Americans being superficial. This is the word that people often use to describe it here in Germany. These questions come in several forms with many different layers to them, and I plan to make more videos on this topic in the future, but today I'm going to do my best to sort of untangle the cultural misunderstanding surrounding "Hi, how are you?" Now, first of all, I can absolutely, totally understand why this could be confusing. You start work in a new company in the US, it's your first day, you're introduced to a new colleague, and she says, "Hi, how are you?" as she goes in to shake your hand. You're thrilled because you've actually been having a pretty bad time the last few days, so you're really happy to unload all these issues onto this person. Only problem, that question doesn't actually mean what you might think it means. But don't feel bad. I did the same thing the other way around when I first moved to Germany. I asked the cashier at a clothing store, for example, "Hallo, wie geht es dir?" as he rang up my clothes, only to get a pretty strange look. I blame the textbooks. They say hi equals hello. How are you is wie geht es dir? But in real life, that's often not actually the case. After a while, I came to realize that the American "Hi, how are you?" should really more just line up with the German "Hallo" in textbooks, because in many situations, that's all it means. It's often just a long way of saying hello. Okay, so far pretty easy, but brace yourself because now it is going to get a little bit more complicated. Unlike in the UK, where I believe the appropriate response to "how do you do" is "how do you do," in the US, that's not usually the case with "how are you." Here's an example. Person 1 says, "Hi, how are you?" Person 2 says, "Good, how are you?" Person 1 says, "I'm good." Now, this is where I think a lot of the cultural misunderstanding comes in. You might be thinking, but what if I'm not actually good? Then I should lie and just say that I'm good? The society in the US forces me to pretend I'm good even if I'm not? Okay. Let's break it down. What if you're not actually doing good? Well, it doesn't really matter. You still say good. Not because of being superficial or fake, but because this is just a back and forth dance at this point. The words themselves have lost their original meaning. It's not taken literally. Saying "I'm good" does not literally mean you are feeling good, and saying "how are you" does not literally ask the other person, "How are you? Tell me your feelings." Sometimes, over time, words lose their original meaning and take on a new one in certain contexts. For example, cool no longer just refers to the temperature. "Oh, that's cool." "Hi, how are you?" and the corresponding response of "good" can be thought of the same way. Taken all together, nowadays, it's often just a long version of hello. So then, when does "hi, how are you" mean hello? And when does it really actually mean "how are you doing"? And how can you tell the difference? "Hi, how are you?" as hello is used, for example, at the office when you pass by someone walking down the hallway. "Hi, how are you?" "Good, how are you?" "Good." At the grocery store with the cashier. At a hotel, talking with the receptionist when you check in or you check out. Or when you pass someone on a hiking path. Pretty much, I would say it seems like whenever you would just say "Hallo, hallo" in Germany. But so, how do you know if someone really actually wants to know how you are? Or what if you really want to ask someone else how they're doing? That's done with your tone of voice, your body language, and or rephrasing the question a little bit. For example, you're in the break room and your friend walks in. Instead of saying, "Hey, how are ya?" you could go with, "Hey, it's good to see you. Tell me, how are you doing?" Or, "Hey, so how's it going today?" Both of those, I think, are a little closer to the German "Wie geht es dir?" but it's hard to explain all of that in a textbook. My takeaway from all of this is that as far as "Hi, how are you?" goes, I don't think Americans care any less than Germans. Germans don't want to know the whole life story of someone at the grocery store, and for the most part, neither do Americans. It's just that it could be confusing because "Hi, how are you?" is often taught in school and could sound like it's "Wie geht es dir?" or "Wie geht es Ihnen?" But that's actually not a good translation for "How are you?" "Hi, how are you?" has turned into a long version of "hello," and it just takes understanding the context and the American culture to know that. So my question for you is, what other examples do you have of words losing their original meaning and then causing a misunderstanding because of that? And I did my best to explain the "Hi, how are you?" thing, but what questions do you still have about this topic? Please let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and also thank you so much to our patrons on Patreon who help make these videos possible. Thank you so much for your support. If you would like to check out our Patreon page, you can find a link to that down in the description below. Until next time, auf Wiedersehen. Who help make these videos possible. And it takes understanding the context, not concept. Well, also the concept. Just line up with the All right, let's try that again. All right, now I'm ready.